Hello and welcome to the Parents Roundtable. Everyday parents and experts discuss the issues. And as you can see, there's just two of us in the room today, and it's not because Sean Henson is the expert of the day. It's because she is who showed up at the Parents Roundtable. So we both listened to my interview with Mike Domitrz from yesterday, and we're going to have a conversation about it. So among other things that we are modeling in this telesummit in terms of parents' voices and people showing up, we are modeling the imperfections of people being busy and life happening, and people who wanted to show up at the table either for other reasons or for technical reasons not being able to show up. But so Sean, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I am a mom of four. I'm actually 53 years old, and I'm a mom of four children. I have an adult daughter who is almost 28, and I have an almost 9-year-old, a 7-year-old as of yesterday, and a 5-year-old. So I have kind of a split aged family of kids. And the reason for that is that I actually adopted my oldest daughter's 3 children. So the youngest 3 are my children, but they're my adopted grandchildren. So that's me as a mom. And I also run an online business. I'm a holistic business coach. So that's my profession. I do kind of a mompreneur thing at home. So.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm Elizabeth Stitt. My company is Joyful Parenting Coaching. And I put the summit together in support of United We Parent. I believe their mission of inclusivity, and not just of race, creed, religion, sexual orientation, but even more importantly, that each of us as individuals brings a real gift to our children, and that that we are the parent who is meant to be there for the children that we have in our lives. And so that's why we're here at the summit, and we've covered all kinds of interesting topics. And today the interview is with Mike Domitrz of the Date Safe Project, and he was really talking a lot about boundaries and consent. So Sean, do you want to start with what your big takeaway was?
Oh, wow. Sure. So I was kind of chit-chatting with Elizabeth before we were on, and the thing is I've been through the teenage years. I have an adult daughter, so, and I'm doing this whole mom thing a second time, so it's like I want to do it right. It's not that like you did everything wrong, but you know how it is. It's like you always think, oh, I wish I would have done this or that. And one of the things that that my big takeaway is my adopted granddaughter, she's almost 9, and she has some real boundary issues. She was with her mom, and there was trauma, and so she was taken away from her birth mom. And so, and she lived a lifestyle where, anyway, she has some habits that are just really ingrained, even though she was 2 years old when she was gone. And so I would like to, the whole boundary thing is something that I've been working on with her. She's so much better, but I can just see the writing on the wall that if I don't get a handle on this with her, she doesn't have a man. I'm a single mom. I can't, buy a guy, it's like, it's just like, we just don't have a guy in our life, and that's okay. I'm doing it. But she wants that. She yearns for it. She, we have family friends, and that's great, but it's like no consistent man in her life. And so and she has this boundary problem. So I just know that if I don't get my hands around that and really help her to internalize her own boundaries, that, it's just, you can just see she's going to be sexual. She's going to want to have that intimacy with a man, and you can see she yearns for it. So when Mike was talking about the boundaries and the, that you don't just want to set up rules, I'm like, yes, because I've actually had her in therapy, and I've actually tried to get the therapist to help me with this. And his approach was just so good, just really having it come from them and having them practice. And, we've done some of it, but not around sex. It's been just in parks, you don't talk to people, that sort of thing, like you don't talk to everybody and that sort of thing. So I really appreciated that piece in particular.
Yeah. And I wanted to push him a little to go a little bit deeper with that. And I do like the way he said, I'm just going to look at my notes here. He said, to not only teach kids to say like really clear things like, stop what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's very clear. But
Right.
also you like, I'm not comfortable with that.
Right.
And one of the things I like about that is that I'm not comfortable with that, or I'm not comfortable with that right now, suggests that, there might be a time later when
Mm-hmm.
I'm older, or, maybe I'm a 14 or 15-year-old saying this. I'm not comfortable with that now.
Right.
But then it doesn't have to be, no, I don't want that in my life. It just has to be, I don't want that right now. Right. And that still leaves some avenues open for still being a sexual person.
Mm-hmm.
But for little kids, what he said about, if somebody touched you in a way you didn't want to be touched, or if somebody was trying to kiss you and you didn't want to be kissed, what words would you use? And then if the child not having an answer, giving options.
Right.
Right. So, not you trying to say, this is wrong, this is bad, this doesn't feel good, but giving them a sense to feel it in their own body and to be able to say, no, I don't want that, thank you. Or,
And the role playing is so key too. And that's really helped her with just general boundaries, just role playing that before we get into a social situation, that sort of thing. So I love that, that idea of.
Yes. And a bit about, I was asking about sort of, lower elementary kids, elementary and lower elementary kids, because, with our little guys, with our 3-4-year-olds, I feel like we do the stranger danger and body parts and the distinction between, what makes you a boy and what makes somebody else a girl. And, this is a penis and that's a vulva or a vagina. But in those middle grades, it's like, then we go into like, okay, we covered that. And, him saying, well, what are you hearing about kids at school? Or, and he said, what if a kid says, well, they kissed each other? And then being able to ask your child, what do you think about that? Would you like to be kissed? Mm-hmm. How would that feel? What would you want to say in that situation? Did they ask first? I love that. Right? That's his whole piece for the older kids, but really training and asking. And the other thing that I thought about in there was, like just so often, how often we're, even with our younger kids' television, it does come up, and it might be in the, sense of I don't know. Well, when my kids were little, we used to watch Full House. And right. And Full House had a lot of different people at a lot of different ages with a lot of different interests. And, so like you had the oldest daughter, whose name, of course, I forget, going through that first crush, and the middle daughter going, ew, you like him. And how we can, to the extent that we do sit down, and the world is sexualized and these things are coming up in programs, even when our little kids are there, but how we can use it to be a springboard for conversation.
Right.
And to stop and doing things. Any more thoughts about, just, you've got 5, 7, and 9, so you are like smack in there. Like, is there anything your kids have said to you that have made you raise your eyebrow or realize that maybe?
Well, yeah, actually today, my kids are pretty, they really, I do have good communication with them, so that's a good thing. So we're driving along, we're going to school. It was this morning, and my daughter she just said this morning, she said, how big is a little girl's vagina? And I said, I really don't know. you know, and I said, where did you think, or how did you think of that? She said, well, I overheard there was a movie on grandmas, and I heard something about a vagina, and they said the word vagina or whatever. So that's where it came from. So she asked me this question, and I just, I don't even know. I just it just kind of caught me off guard, you know? So I just kind of said, well, I'm not really sure, you know, and, you know, I said, yeah, I'm not sure, you know, how big they are. So I didn't know exactly how to respond to that.
Right.
But, but
Smaller,
nothing, you know.
smaller than they will be.
What's that?
In proportion to.
Yeah, like I don't.
In proportion to the rest of their body.
Yeah. So.
Let's see. Oh, so then he talked about how, so and I've heard different numbers for the average of when kids have first been exposed to pornography. And I think part of the I've heard as young as 7. And I think part of the difference in numbers probably is how are they counting it, right? What is counting as pornography? Is it any time that somebody is objectified for their sexuality? Does that count? Or is it, you know, is it if the breasts are pushed up and spilling out of the dress, but otherwise it's not a sexualized context? Does that count? But even if you consider that it's 11 and not 7, it is more present, and it's harder for us to know that that our kids have seen it. And I think that's one of the things that's scary.
Yeah, if you know, I hadn't thought about the kids at this age being exposed to that. I mean, my kids, it's like they're with me, so I don't worry about that. But then he mentioned they're showing each other the phones, and you know what? I can't believe it, but my kids' age, even 6-year-olds, have iPhones.
Yeah.
You know, and I went, oh my goodness, I never thought about that. You know, that I know when my oldest daughter was she was a teenager, she and my nieces got on the internet, and you know, they got into it or whatever. But I don't. Yeah, but that was an older kid, you know, sort of thing. So yeah, it was an eye opener. I didn't even think of that. So yeah.
Yes, and yeah, you're just reminding me of another parenting expert that I was talking to who was saying that you know, and I don't remember who it was, but whoever this expert was saying that she is dead set against sleepovers because it gives kids, if kids have phones, it gives them this unrestricted time, so that you know, whatever's going on, it's going on in the closeness of darkness. It's going on away from the parents. They're going to be a little bit bolder. They're daring each other to do stuff, and then you really don't know. And so it's not. It's, you know, it's not that there's anything else wrong with it except that there's this unknown. And if there is a phone there, and even if you say, you know, phones, you know, let me have your phones for the night. What happens when somebody doesn't do it? And then you can't unsee what you've seen.
Right. No, you know, that's interesting too, because I have changed my whole view. Just my first daughter, I was, you know, she did sleepovers and with her friends and all that, but my kids have not. These ones have not, and they, you know, they always talk about it at school. The kids always talk about that, and they want to have sleepovers with their friends. And I'm actually thinking that I don't want them to. There's one friend that my son has that I feel really comfortable with his parents. I'm not saying never, but if I open that up, then it's kind of like the girls are going to say, well, what about us? You know, and I don't feel like I can trust that. You know, I just feel like what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And right. So here's the other piece that came up with that is that, right. So even if you say there's no phones, you don't know what they've seen, right? You don't know what the friend has seen or what the friend has experienced. And so having seen it or experienced it, their sense of what is normal has shifted over into maybe a new plane. And so again, now they're bringing it up in conversation and they're talking about it. And it's not that they can't have these conversations at school.
Right.
it's just more likely at school that somebody else is going to overhear them or is going to get interrupted.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about, the intimacy of like hours of we could be asleep, but maybe we're not asleep and we're talking and we're not. So that's really true. Let's see. Oh, okay. So one of the other conversations Mike had, since you have one boy and two girls there that you're bringing up, was the usefulness of talking, really having the same conversation with boys that we would have with girls. And Mike was saying how, very often the conversation with girls is about protection. It's about being safe. It's about, having clear boundaries. And the conversation with a boy is about don't get in trouble, don't get a girl pregnant, don't do anything. But, that we're not really having the conversations that says, first of all, that says, what can you do? What is okay? What does it feel like to, what does feel good? And furthermore, and I don't have an age down, so I'm not sure exactly what age he's thinking about. But like one of the things he brought up was this idea of why would we have oral sex before kissing? And he said that, given that a boy has probably had, a boy's penis is there, he's playing with it, he's feeling it, he's probably had an orgasm much younger than a girl who may or may not find her clitoris and may or may not learn that she can give herself pleasure, and she may or may not have an orgasm. And so the chances are that, in this fledgling relationship, the boy knows what feels good. And he's like, you want to play? And it's not necessarily that the boy's all about his own pleasure. Maybe he wants to do it. But for the girl who doesn't even know it's there, there might be a strong negative reaction. So Mike's point was, why don't we talk to girls about, what is a guy experiencing? What is he feeling? Why don't we talk to guys about how girls' bodies are and what they need? In essence, I mean, it's so funny because you think of like, we train kids in so many other areas, right? We don't leave it up to them to just figure it out for themselves. Right. And he did make the distinction of, you can talk about sex and bodies and relationship, but you don't have, it's not like you have to say what you did or what you're doing. You could just say, when people come together, or for boys, it's more typical that, or for girls, it's more typical that. And it struck me how very, very comfortable Mike is with all of this conversation. I don't know how, as you hear that said out loud and then you contemplate, a 9-year-old who, a girl who's going to be 9 and the next year will be 10 and then she's 11, that's middle school. Then you're right there in the thick of it, as Mike pointed out to me. We're getting close. There are certainly 7th graders who have had or given oral sex, and there are certainly 7th graders who have had intercourse. Yeah. Yeah. How's that for a thought, Bob?
Yeah. Well, as far as boys and girls, I don't know. I don't think of it. I haven't actually started those conversations with my son. Although, the thing is that the big difference I see between my kids is my oldest she's very verbal, and she's just really out there, and he's much more quiet. And so he doesn't ask the question. He doesn't, probably it's been more around, you need to, I try to get him to be respectful of them. Well, they're not probably comfortable having you run around nudie tootie, so put some clothes on, you got sisters and that sort of thing. But I haven't, he doesn't ask a lot of questions, and that's just who he is. I don't know if that's a boy thing or just him, but he's just a little more shy and a little bit more reserved. So I think for me, I need to be conscious to find ways to bring those things up or to weave them in naturally, because my little girl says, hey, is it smaller or big? She's like just really
right,
there.
Exactly.
And so, I got a little caught off guard, but it gives me the opportunity to have a discussion. Of course, he's listening to all this, so he's getting that. But it's like, I don't see him just coming to me and asking me these kind of questions. I think I need to be really mindful of that. So that's what hits me as a parent, is just to be more conscious of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're really big about respect in our family, and he's very into being a gentleman. So I mean, if I can weave it into being a gentleman too, he's all about that. He loves that role. And so as far as respecting, girls and that sort of thing, that's how I see kind of weaving it in for him, because that's his thing. He loves that. And he's a real gentleman.
Right. Yeah, so there is something about, Mike's comment about I want you to have this knowledge before you need it.
Yeah.
Right? It's like when I was talking about how when I taught 7th grade, and I knew that some of the 7th graders were basically still playing with their dolls, and others were asking for information. I taught a class called Skills for Adolescent Living early on in my career, and at 22, I thought I needed to answer every question. And then, later when I began to my own children and I began to get more perspective, and I was like, oh, but, if you're still creating imaginary worlds and playing with your dolls and you're off in fantasy land and the only men around are princes and, they only come in at the end of the story, and you're in a really different place. But, Mike's point about this is like, well, you might not be in this space yet, but I want you to have this knowledge before you need it. So I don't know. So, I guess that might be the line that I would use. I think that if I had a 9-year-old boy right now.
Yeah. And I think books can really help with that too, because it gives a platform to, have a discussion. If I can find some really good books, or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. Good point. Oh yeah. And the other point I really liked when Mike was talking about, he said, are you exercising your equal choice? But extending that in bed with your clothes off and in all places in your relationship of, anytime that, and this is actually a really good one for lower elementary, because lower elementary is so much about friendship and so much about, what do I have to do to have him be my friend? Or I don't like him because he won't do this, or, I played kickball today. Well, sweetie, I thought you liked handball better. Well, but Johnny wanted to play kickball, but maybe Johnny would come play handball with you. No, Johnny only wants to play kickball, and he won't be my friend if I don't play kickball.
Yep.
I
hear that. Because that is such a different culture. It's been something that I've really noticed with this litter. The difference between me, my upbringing, my adult daughter, and then these kids is at a young age, 1st grade even, or younger maybe, I don't know, but just the peers, and they do this thing, what you're talking about. I will be your friend if you do this, and I won't be your friend if you do that. And I don't ever remember that. Maybe it was there and it just wasn't me, but I don't remember that. I remember it with my first daughter, but all my kids are coming home, and it's like, you're my friend, you're not my friend, based on what you'll do for me or not do for me.
Yes.
And so, that's definitely a new thing.
Right.
I think. Is it, or is it just me?
You can see how that might translate to, right, I'll be your boyfriend if you'll give me a blowjob.
Exactly. Oh yeah, setting that whole dynamic up. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So that's probably a very good, now that I think about it, a very good place to have that conversation.
Yes.
And to bring up words like boundaries and like choice and like equality.
Mm-hmm.
You both have choices in the relationship, and like the quality of relationship and looking for that give and take.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up too, because with my daughter, the 9-year-old, it's all with the girls. I don't see this kind of I'll be your friend, not your friend, but it's the girls. But I've actually had that thought, like that whole dynamic. I see it setting that up. I'm just like, I'll be your friend if you do this. And she's such a pleaser. She wants her friends to like her so much that it worries me. Yeah, so it's a really good point, and I think you're right. It's a good way to lead in with that.
Yeah.
Those conversations. Mm-hmm.
Well, I love talking to you, Sean. I know that the parents who show up, we're hoping probably for a more rounded conversation, but
Yeah.
but this is life, and
Good.
this is what we have tonight, and what we're going to have to offer our parents. So I really thank you for it, and
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
yeah, and because this is the last roundtable, I do want to put out there to our listeners, to our audience, that I will be setting up a sort of open forum date where we can, as many people fit into the Zoom conferencing room, can come to the table to say what were their takeaways from the summit, what are their big parenting concerns, and so all you listeners out there, I invite you to that. And Sean, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.